we're live-ish.
Live to us.
We're recording.
We are recording. Hi, and happy Saturday, everyone. I'm Jen.
I'm Nate.
And we are 32 and 32. We are going to touch on maybe all 32 teams this week. We'll see if we've got time to talk about Thursday night's game. But otherwise, we're going to talk about the other 30 teams that we have rolling out this week here in week 3.
Yep, it's going to be fun. We're coming at you from Mexico again for the last time. Hopefully not the last time this season because we love it here, but last time for a while.
We'll be back in December.
We'll be back in December. So I think, are you ready to get to it?
Let's do it.
All right, so we are going to start this week with the Washington football team at Buffalo. We're going to start with the Washington side of this game first. Tyler Heinicke looked good last week against a subpar Giants defense. This week he's facing a much better Buffalo defense. I'm going to be very cautious. We are going to be very cautious starting him, as he was most likely a waiver pickup on your team if you have him. He's there for depth and injury. Don't roll him out this week. Be cautious about Terry McLaurin and Logan Thomas as well because of Taylor Heinicke. Again, he looked good, but not enough to trust starting him or Scary Terry or Logan Thomas. Antonio Gibson has been serviceable, but Buffalo is only allowing an average of 73 yards per game on the ground so far this season. J.D. McKissick is playable because he factors more into the passing game than Antonio Gibson does, and look for him to get more receiving work and red zone opportunities than probably anybody else in that offense.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep.
Buffalo, on the other hand, is full of good plays this week. Josh Allen is always a go, as is Stephon Diggs. Zach Moss snagged 2 touchdowns against Miami last week and seems to be the red zone RB, if last week was any indication of the future. And then Dawson Knox could be a sneaky play this week if he can find the end zone again as well. And then outside of that, Emmanuel Sanders, Gabe Davis, Cole Beasley, Devin Singletary, I think they should all be on your bench if your situation isn't dire. But if you can start somebody ahead of those guys, I certainly would.
Yeah, I mean, the only real play here that I might be okay with is Devin Singletary. He seems to be getting a decent amount of work. But again, with Zach Moss getting that red zone work, taking away those touchdown opportunities from Singletary makes him tough to play. So up next, we have Chicago and Cleveland, and I am very excited to talk about this game. As you all know, I love Justin Fields. I've been high on Justin Fields since before the draft. And it's Justin Fields week in Chicago. He's finally getting the opportunity to start. Cleveland has a better than average defense that could get pressure on Fields early. So while I'm excited for Justin Fields, you should probably hold off on starting him outside of Superflex formats. That's the only place that I've got him starting this week. David Montgomery's always a start, of course. He's going to get all the groundwork. There's nobody really competing with him for touches right now, so you want to start him. Same with Allen Robinson and especially Darnell Mooney, who are tied for the team lead in targets with 15 each. Mooney has more catches, and Robinson has the lone touchdown of the two. Of note here, as Jen mentioned in her in-between media column this week, is Mooney's chemistry with Fields through camp. Mooney repeatedly talked about how great he felt with Fields over Mitchell Trubisky, and we're assuming over Andy Dalton as well because, I mean, the pale squirt gun is the pale squirt gun. Definitely something to consider here. I'm benching Cole Kmet where possible. There are a couple places he's my only tight end because – who knows why, but he is, because we are part of the Cole Kmet club and we drank the juice. He's just not seeing the amount of targets that we expected thus far in the season. Jimmy Graham only has 2 targets. They're just not going to the tight end right now. So we're really going to need to see Cole Kmet get more involved in the offense before I really feel good telling you to plug him into your lineups.
And see if Justin Fields likes him.
That's going to be a huge thing this week.
Yep. Absolutely. Cleveland, let's talk about them. I really think they have the potential to blow this game up this week. Baker Mayfield has been incredibly efficient despite his 2 interceptions, only 9 incompletions on 49 attempts. That's amazing. He's a start for sure in Superflex and someone we don't mind starting up in the 1 QB slot as well. You definitely want Nick Chubb in this week, even though Chicago has allowed the 5th fewest rushing yards so far this season. With Jarvis Landry out, Kareem Hunt figures to factor more into the passing game this week, and he's a nice flex play. Outside of those 4, even with a probable return of Odell Beckham Jr. this week, we have a series of dart throws. David Njoku has shown he's the tight end 1 in Cleveland, but His numbers still aren't stellar. He hasn't shown enough to be a play this week, for me anyways. I mean, and if you're in a pinch, Donovan Peoples-Jones could pay off if he can get in the end zone.
Yeah, and I think really we're looking at Kareem Hunt taking the majority of the receiving work. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out with injuries, who he feeds, who he doesn't feed. So, we'll see. So next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens at the Detroit Lions. Things get kind of interesting here. Baltimore's good.
Mm-hmm.
We have a player in Marquise Brown that has emerged as a threat we didn't expect. Nobody was high on him after a real disappointment last season. As always, you're going to start Lamar Jackson. He was a full going.
Both of those guys are questionable, but both were starting.
Yep, they're both a full go in practice, so you're going to start them. Running back Tyson Williams has emerged as a threat with both J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards out for the year. He should be a factor against a decent Detroit run defense, I would assume. If you have him, you're going to want him in your lineup because you're probably relying on him. You probably lost Dobbins or Edwards, which is why you have him. Let's see here. Mark Andrews. With his draft capital, you probably want to start him. Marquise Brown, as we mentioned before, he's been a surprise. You probably want to give him a chance this week. Outside of there, there's not much to talk about. Sammy Watkins, while he's shown some promise this season, I don't think it's going to continue. Unless you have to start him, I wouldn't.
Yeah. Okay, Detroit, I would say, is also interesting. We've got quarterback Jared Goff. He's surprised many of us and looking kind of like his old self from when he's with Rams. Fire him up in your super flex slots if you've got him. DeAndre Swift is questionable, but looks like he'll play. He and Jamal Williams are not a threat to make much noise in the rushing attack, but they've both proven to be effective in the passing game so far. Quintez Cephas, who I also wrote about this week, he's also shown he is more than capable and is probably deserving of a start against the worst passing defense in the league. If you have somebody else, maybe fire them up, but he's a good sleeper for you. And do we even need to talk about TJ Hawkinson? Probably not, but we're going to anyways. This is going to be probably a high-scoring affair with lots of points in the passing side to go around.
Yep. Yeah, I think Hawkinson's a fire-up start.
Yeah,
he's shout out Seth Woolcock, our colleague at In Between Media, has been high on TJ Hawkinson heading into the season, and he was completely right on that one.
He was. Okay, let's talk about Arizona at Jacksonville. Arizona has one of the most potent passing attacks in the league. That's without question. Kyler Murray is leading the charge, and you're obviously going to start him. DeAndre Hopkins is nursing a rib injury, but you probably still have to start him too. That said, Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore should see an increased workload, so get one or both of them in your lineups. Chase Edmonds and James Conner are afterthoughts in the run game behind Kyler Murray. So start them if you have to. James Conner just hasn't done what we wanted him to do, which is really sad for those of us who have him.
But not a surprise necessarily.
Not a surprise. It's just disappointing.
Yeah.
And then AJ Green could also see increased volume due to the Hopkins injury and is a nice flex play depending on how things are starting out Sunday morning.
Yeah, which is not something I thought we'd say about AJ Green this season, but here we are. Right. 2021. There you go.
Hello.
Yep. So, okay, Jacksonville. Yuck.
Just yuck all around.
I mean, Trevor Lawrence's completion percentage is sitting at exactly 50% currently. That's not what you want to see out of the number one pick in the draft. The running game has been completely listless. Not a single back over even 100 yards through 2 weeks. The receiving core really isn't much better. Stay away from this team as a whole if you can. Marvin Jones seems to really be the only viable player in this offense to date, which is not something I don't think anyone saw coming. James Robinson, Carlos Hyde, DJ Chark, and as much as it pains my soul to say it, Laviska Shenault, my boy, they're all duds. I mean, really, you should be avoiding this Jacksonville team at all costs.
Yeah, see how the season goes, but for right now, if you have a Jacksonville player, probably bench them.
Yep.
Okay, over to LA and Kansas City. After early concerns about LA about Austin Eckler not being involved in the passing game, we saw him week 2 grab 9 catches on 9 targets. Problem solved. Hopefully. I have way too many shares of Eckler to not have him produce, especially because I've got CMC who, as we all know, is out for a couple of weeks, 3 to 4, potentially with that hamstring injury. So go ahead and keep starting Eckler. I think that this week, even with Kansas City, he'll be a decent start. Justin Herbert has been himself despite the 3 interceptions and only 2 touchdowns. And that's going to work itself out. And given his draft capital, you're probably going to start him. Keenan Allen has had a relatively slow start considering he doesn't have a touchdown this far, but you can feel it's coming. It's going to happen. It has to. It will.
Yep.
And then Mike Williams has been a pleasant surprise with more catches than Allen so far and 2 touchdown grabs. So while there may be some concern facing a decent Kansas City defense, this is a divisional rivalry and all cards will be on the table. Jared Cook is still very touchdown dependent and someone we don't recommend starting.
Yep, and I think that about sums it up for the Chargers. But now for Kansas City, same story every week. Start Mahomes, start Kelsey, start Hill, and that's it. Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be a disappointment every single week you start him, so just don't do it. It's time to move on from CEH. He's not going to be a thing, people. You drafted him too early 2 years in a row. Forget about it. Trade him to somebody who doesn't see that, if you're smart.
Yeah, we're over him.
Yep.
Have been. Okay, that's it on Kansas City. So let's move on to New Orleans and New England. Is Jameis Winston going to be week 1 Jameis or week 2 Jameis? We don't know. New England has one of the better pass defenses in the league, and can Winston crack the code against them? Our guess is probably not. It's not looking good for him. He's at best a super flex play, but probably better served on your bench this week until we know what he's going to do. That week 1 just knocked us all over, and then week 2, not so much. So the unpredictability should put him on your bench, and that makes this entire receiving core a bench. Well, you can't bench Alvin Kamara. Last week's output was concerning, to say the least. Through 2 games, he's had 88 yards, 33 yards receiving, and only 7 catches. And it pains me to say this, but if you can pivot elsewhere, you should probably consider it this week, just against New England. I mean, that sounds really scary. It makes you throw up in your mouth a little bit as you're hovering over benching him. But if you have somebody else, it might be a good week to just let him rest.
Oh, I hate it, but yeah, you're not wrong.
Because he went in the first round.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was the first pick in some of the drafts I was in. So now I think it's time to move on to New England.
Okay.
So Mac Jones is going to be a star in this league, but this only being his 3rd start, you probably have better options at quarterback on your roster, and you're probably going to want to go with them unless it's super flex. This week, I really feel like the only viable starts here are Damian Harris and James White. James White has really started to heat up. He's getting a lot of receiving work. He's seeing more rushing work than I think we expected. And Damian Harris has just been a bull. So get those guys in your lineup. There's enough volume there that they're going to make sense, especially in PPR, half PPR. And Damian Harris, with Ramondre Stevenson in the doghouse, he's the guy in the backfield who's going to be garnering the majority of carries. So, fire him up. There you go. I don't really have anything else to say about New England.
Got nothing.
Nope. So let's go ahead and move on to the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Giants.
Okay.
So apparently Matt Ryan should have retired.
Apparently.
I mean, he's been subpar at best so far. And while that could change, it's really not worth the risk of starting him this week, even though the Giants don't have a phenomenal defense. I don't see the value. You've got better options in your lineup. Okay. And as it turns out, Mike Davis isn't the lead back in Atlanta, much to my surprise, much to my concern. I don't love that. But don't be fooled by Cordarrelle Patterson's increased involvement last week. We've seen it before with him, and generally it's just not sustainable. Proceed with caution on Patterson. Calvin Ridley isn't a bad start as a wide receiver too, or a flex play, but that's about it. Kyle Pitts has been good, but really not enough to start him over some other options you probably have on your roster. That's bound to change this season, but for now, I'm saying be careful. Could this be the week where he blows up? Yes. Is it worth the risk? I don't think it is quite yet.
Probably not. So Giants are hard to figure out. I mean, are they good? I don't know. Is Daniel Jones the real deal? Is Saquon Barkley an average running back at this point? I don't know. This probably isn't the week we find out, as Atlanta has the worst scoring defense in the league, allowing an average of 40 points per game through 2 contests, but we'll see. You can start Daniel Jones this week as a super flex and feel pretty good about it. Saquon Barkley should rebound this week and be quality for your team. Sterling Shepard is off to a hot start, and you want to fire him up. You have him. Darius Slayton was relevant last week because of a touchdown grab, but unless he gets in the end zone again, he's probably not worth taking a risk on. And the same goes for Kenny Golladay. keep him benched if you can. Evan Ingram is back this week, so if you need a tight end or a flex play with potential touchdown upside, we don't take that choice.
Yep. I mean, Evan Ingram is probably the one guy I'm willing to start this week outside of Sterling Shepard on this team as far as receivers go. So I think you hit the nail on the head there. So next up, we have got Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. So to say Burrow should have a field day against a really weak Pittsburgh pass defense is an understatement. You're going to start him. You're going to start Jamar Chase. T. Higgins, there's some questions. He's a little hampered in practice, but I still think he's someone you want to start. And while this isn't popular or sexy, Tyler Boyd has shown some value in a flex slot.
Yeah.
I've seen him do well. I had to start him in a super flex slot last week, and it actually was okay. And this makes me want to throw up in my mouth a little bit, but start Joe Mixon. He has been stellar so far. Outside of that, there's not much else to talk about in Cincinnati. I think that's all I've got.
Okay. Then I will take the Steelers. Najee Harris hasn't been the instant success that some, including Nate, thought. Not to say that by the end of the season he isn't going to be balling out, because he probably will be. But for now, this offense runs through the passing game, which is concerning given Big Ben's injury to his pectoral. He was a full participant in practice yesterday, but he's a little scary, little iffy. I think we should just be concerned with Big Ben. If you have somebody else to start them. I don't in one of my leagues, so I'll be taking a flyer on that, but we'll see. And then same with Chase Claypool. And then Juju Smith-Schuster is a scary flex play, but do what you have to. If you've got him, might as well throw him in. And Pat Freiermuth will be relevant soon, but not this week against Cincy. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Deontay Johnson is the one smash play in this offense this week, and that's about it. I think Chase Claypool sees the volume. So, yeah, there you go. Yep. So, next up, we have Indianapolis at the Tennessee Titans. So, in Indy this week, Carson Wentz is expected to start despite having sprained not one, but two ankles. If he had a third and a fourth ankle to sprain, he probably would have sprained them, because this is Carson Wentz we're talking about here. Just because he's starting this week against the Rams doesn't mean you should start him. He may not make it through the whole game. We may end up with Jacob Eason out there. We'll have to see. Stay away from him. Yep. Jonathan Taylor has been underwhelming, to say the least. Somebody else called that. I don't know who it was. It was somebody in this room, though.
The only person in the room with you.
Yeah, I guess I'm the only one in here. He barely has over 100 yards rushing and only 7 catches so far. So we're not seeing the passing volume that makes him relevant in PPR. He's just not getting the rushing yards. He doesn't have a touchdown. That whole backfield doesn't have a touchdown. They only have 3 offensive touchdowns, all 3 of them from Wentz in the passing game, 2 of them to Zach Pascal. Nyheim Hines has been lackluster. I really wouldn't be starting him if you don't have to. Man, Zach Pascal and Michael Pittman, though. I mean, Pittman's seeing the volume, so you want to have him in. He's been great. Pascal has 3 touchdowns for Indy. You're going to want to fire him up as well. But don't be surprised if he disappoints you this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, Tennessee really hasn't been what we thought it would be so far. Ryan Tannehill has been pedestrian, and A.J. Brown has been surprisingly average, disappointingly average. That said, this could be the week both regain form. We're starting both. Julio Jones has been phenomenal and worth a start despite not grabbing a touchdown yet this season. That will change. You're obviously starting Derrick Henry. And with his recent inclusion in the passing game, you can feel even better about having him in your lineup. Not that you didn't to begin with, because I've always felt good about it, but you can feel even better about it as we continue through the season.
Yeah, man, him getting involved in the passing game this year, I mean, just he's just elevated him. I mean, we could finish the season with Derrick Henry being the RB1 overall because of his involvement in the passing game, if that continues. Yeah. Okay, so next up we have the Miami Dolphins at the Las Vegas Raiders. And, Miami. Looks like they're going to be without Tua Tagovailoa again this week against Vegas, meaning Jacoby Brissett most likely gets the start. There wasn't much to be excited about to begin with here, so it comes no surprise when we say the only real viable starts here are probably Jalen Waddle and Devontae Parker. and even those are suspect. They're going to get the volume, but if it's reasonable volume, if it's enough to make them a start in PPR, we don't know. We don't know how much they're going to be on the field. Myles Gaskin hasn't been near what people were expecting him to be. Malcolm Brown has yet to steal any goal line work from anyone. And Salvon Ahmed has solidified that he's the third option at running back. There's just not much to like here in Miami. If you can pivot elsewhere with these players, you should do it this week.
Yeah. On the other side, though, Derek Carr, he has exceeded our expectations so far. I mean, I've always loved Derek Carr. I mean, I've hated Derek Carr because he's
a Raider.
But otherwise, as a quarterback, I've always liked him. He gets a lot of hate, but he's really exceeded expectations for the haters out there. He's been efficient and productive. He's been spreading the ball out effectively. And it's a good thing because the backfield has been atrocious in Las Vegas. Not one running back has over 35 rushing yards the whole season. And it appears Josh Jacobs will not play again this week. Kenyon Drake has been more involved in the passing attack. Certainly not enough to warrant starting him this week. I'd stay away from him for at least another week and reassess once Josh Jacobs comes back. Henry Ruggs has emerged as a favorite target for Carr, and then alongside the obvious of Darren Waller, and both are quality starts this week, along with Carr.
Yep. I think if you're in a pinch, if you've got Hunter Renfrow, he's probably not a bad play. I wouldn't mind tossing him in there.
I've got him a couple places. I'm putting him in.
Yep. Brian Edwards. Yeah. I don't like Brian Edwards. I just don't. Right. I don't think he's as talented as everybody thinks he is. So, but that we'll see. I mean, we'll see. But I mean, definitely the guys you want in are Carr, Waller, Ruggs this week.
Agreed.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to the Jets and the Broncos.
Okay. Unless you're in a league with wild scoring that rewards poor play, like I am, I actually am in a best ball, worst ball. So
shout out Weenus together.
Yeah,
Cooter Doodle.
Together. Yeah. The Jets are a no all around this week. Denver has a stout defense, even with Bradley Chubb sidelined this week with injury. Zach Wilson is experiencing growing pains as expected, and that makes it difficult to trust the offense at all. Corey Davis needs touchdowns to be reliable, and that's no guarantee this week. Michael Carter is starting to emerge as a reliable running back, but again, this is not the week to test that out against Denver.
Yeah, not against this Denver defense.
Mm-hmm.
So flip it over. And Denver has been a real pleasant surprise this season.
Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater has shown a return to his old form from his days in Minnesota when everyone was super excited about him before he blew up his knee. He's a guy I'm starting in one quarterback leagues, in Superflex. I want him on my roster. I want him starting. Yep. Cortland Sutton had a career week last week. Could he top that against a bad Jets team this week? I think he could. I think he could. He's a start. Noah Fant has been more involved than expected in the offense, making him a sneaky quality play at tight end or in a flex slot, especially if you have a heavy flex roster, heavy flex lineup. Get him in there. The backfield, though, I mean, at least something to be desired here with Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams essentially splitting work. And while Williams has been more efficient with his touches, last week he doubled yards per carry on Melvin Gordon. It's still a two-man committee at this point, and it's really a toss-up as to which will be more fantasy relevant this week. We recommend pivoting away from both if you can. Tim Patrick's a guy maybe is going to be pretty involved this week. I wouldn't mind tossing him in. Albert Okwuegbunam could be a sneaky play this week, but I mean, really, unless you're looking to catch fire and you look like you're going to lose, I am pretty much staying away from those guys this week.
Yep, same here. Okay, over to Tampa Bay and the Rams. Fantasy football aside, this is going to be a fun game. Two of the more potent passing offenses in the league and two of the better defenses in the league, all on the field together. It's going to be fun to watch. Tampa Bay hasn't missed a beat coming off Super Bowl victory last season. Tom Brady is ageless, and you are starting him. Same goes for Rob Gronkowski, who has shown he's still Brady's favorite. Mike Evans has been so disappointing. He's only 2 touchdowns so far, I think. So I'd be benching him. Chris Godwin has been phenomenal. Start him. I mean, the backfield, however, different story. Stay away from Ronald Jones. And then Leonard Fournette is a flex play if you must. He is seeing work in the passing game, making him somewhat valuable. But if you have a better option, I would certainly be moving that direction away from Fournette.
Yeah, this Tampa Bay offense runs through the air right now. There's not a lot of upside in the running game here. Giovanni Bernard could be a guy who could be sneaky good in the next few weeks. We'll have to see if they get him a little bit more involved with Ronald Jones being in the doghouse, apparently with Arian. But that's a conversation for another week. So let's move on to the Rams. I'm excited to talk about the Rams because I love Matthew Stafford. And as soon as he got traded to the Rams, I just knew he was going to be someone that was going to blow up. And he's been everything that we hoped once he got away from the hapless Lions. He's been great. He's found a great target in Cooper Kupp. They're like football besties right now. Cooper Kupp is just eating, and man, it's great. You're going to want to start both of them. Robert Woods needs a touchdown to be worth starting at this point. He should see some opportunities in the red zone here this week, so I feel okay about starting him. Van Jefferson showed promise week 1, but he was non-existent last week, and he's a risky start at best this week. He's someone I wouldn't recommend putting in your lineup. If you have other options, go that route. Darrell Henderson has continued to get the bulk of the running work and had 2 touchdowns to show for it. This week, however, might be the week to bench him. Tampa Bay is only allowing an average of 57 rushing yards per game. Like we said earlier, this game's going to be played in the air on both sides. So you really should be pivoting away from the backfields for both of these teams. I believe. So next up, we have Seattle and Minnesota. Jen.
Yeah, so I'll take the easy side here, which is Seattle. Russell Wilson is still cooking, so he's going to be your QB1 this week if you've got him. That's obvious. Same with Chris Carson. He's the clear RB1 in Seattle and has 2 touchdowns to show for it. Tyler Lockett was again underrated coming into the season and has been nothing short of amazing. Amazing. 3 touchdowns and 278 receiving yards. It's amazing. DK Metcalf has been somewhat disappointing so far, but he's still someone you want in your lineups. Give him a chance this week. Gerald Everett needs a touchdown to be worth a start. That's no guarantee. And hopefully you have another option outside of him.
Yeah, what a weird thing with DK Metcalf.
I know.
But the thing is I'm not concerned yet.
Me neither.
I'm
still starting him.
Yeah, you have to start him. It's going to come. It could be this week against Minnesota.
It could be.
Could be.
I hope it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So Minnesota's kind of interesting. As much as I hate to say this, because literally the intro to one of our shows with In Between, I talk about how I hate Kirk Cousins, but he continues to be one of the more reliable quarterbacks in the league. And this year he's really spreading the ball out a lot. KJ Osborne has come onto the scene as someone you want to start if you had him. He's been very reliable. He's getting the ball a lot. Adam Thielen is still Cousins' favorite red zone target. You've got to start him. Justin Jefferson is starting to heat up. He's gonna get more opportunities. He's gonna get more red zone targets. I'm not worried about Justin Jefferson. You've got to start him every week for now. And then the obvious, Dalvin Cook. You're starting Dalvin Cook. He was a first-round pick in your leagues. You've got to have him in your lineup every week unless he's hurt. Yep.
Okay, over to Green Bay and San Francisco. After week 1 stink fest, Boise's Green Bay looked much better last week. Aaron Rodgers returned to form. If you have him, you're starting him. Aaron Jones had 4 touchdowns, and A.J. Dillon has proven to be a non-factor in the backfield thus far. Devontae Adams has been as expected, and you really have to start him. Robert Tonyan grabbed a touchdown last week. Could see more opportunities in the red zone this week, but he'll need a touchdown to be worth the play. But it's worth a shot. If you have room, I'd start him.
Yeah, I'm starting him where I have him. I think he's going to get some good red zone targets this week against San Francisco.
I do too.
They're really banged up right now, as is the story from last season as well. Again, exactly. San Francisco's still a mess. Jimmy Garoppolo has been average at best. You're only starting him if you absolutely have to, and hopefully that's only in a super flex format. Elijah Mitchell and JaMychal Hasty are both most likely out this week, paving the way for rookie Trey Sermon to finally get a shot at leading that backfield. That's great for him, but doesn't make him startable unless you have no other choice. Right. Keep him out of your lineup. We'll see what happens with him. I need to see the volume first. I need to see that they're actually going to use him before I'm willing to take that risk on him. I really feel like Deebo Samuel is the only real safe play here. He's got the majority of the targets in the passing game. As far as wide receivers go, they've got Trent Sherfield and Juwan Jennings. Both have a touchdown catch this season, but there's no guarantee they're going to get that chance this week. it's not worth the risk. Neither are a quality start. There's just not enough volume there. George Kittle's been really disappointing so far this season too. But given where you drafted him, you can't bail on him yet. You've got to start him. He could return to form, and it could be this week, given the lack of other targets for Jimmy Garoppolo heading into this game with Green Bay. So we'll just have to see.
Yep.
So now we're going to head on to the Monday night game. We've got the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Dallas Cowboys. Jalen Hurts continues to look good in Philly, and you're going to want to start him. Especially, he's got rushing upside reminiscent of Lamar Jackson. He didn't look phenomenal last week, but he could have looked a lot worse. You've got to start him because there's going to be that potential high upside every week. His ceiling is very high. And also, Dallas has one of the worst pass defenses in the league. So you're going to want to get Devontae Smith in your lineup. You want to get Jalen Reagor in your lineup. Dallas Goedert is somebody I'm okay starting. Reagor and Goedert are both pretty touchdown dependent, but I'm okay with that against Dallas because they're going to be scoring. Miles Sanders has been meh so far this season, as I expected. Kenny Gainwell's definitely eaten into his touches and has the lone rushing touchdown in that backfield. But for me, neither are a start this week.
I agree. And now to round out the show this week, we have the Dallas Cowboys. You're starting Dak Prescott. That's a given. What about Ezekiel Elliott? This has been another weird season. I mean, he's looked pedestrian at best, and Tony Pollard is living up to the preseason hype so far, making it tough to say you should start Zeke, despite him showing up last week and getting into the end zone. But I'm favoring Pollard. He's just killing it. He's a flex play, so I wouldn't necessarily put him in as your starter. But if you want to take a chance on him, it's certainly not a bad option. So how about we talk about my favorite guys, CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. They're probably the best receiving duo in the league. Both are on track. They are on track to eclipse 1,000 yards receiving. Both have shown to be reliable in the red zone. Get them in your lineups. Dalton Schultz has emerged as the tight end to have in Dallas over Blake Jarwin. That doesn't mean he's worth starting. 8 targets and 8 catches in 2 games is fine, but not enough to make him a play this week.
Yeah, that's just not reliable enough volume. The tight end seems to be an afterthought, really, in Dallas. One thing I do want to say about Zeke, because I said it last season, when they needed him most, when Dak went down and they needed that running game to flourish, Zeke couldn't do it. He couldn't hack it. Right. And that's concerning, and that was concerning to me coming into this season. I'm not surprised to see him struggling. I think it's going to continue, and I think we're going to see a point where Tony Pollard takes over that backfield. Mm-hmm. It's already starting to happen. I don't mind playing him because he's lived up to the preseason hype. Our buddy, Bo McBigtime, loves Tony Pollard. He's a gigantic Dallas Cowboys fan, so I love Tony Pollard. I think that the time to sell Zeke might be nigh.
Yep, agreed.
Yep.
Okay, that's it for us, guys, from Mexico. We'll see you next week back from our home studios in Colorado, but good luck, and hopefully we've provided some sort of insight to what's happening here in week 3.
Yep, we're just here to get you some wins and get you to that championship in your fantasy league. We know that's what we're all here for. It's fun to play during the season, but you want to win that money at the end of the year.
Yes.
So with that said, don't forget to follow us at 32and32FF on Twitter. We are also 32and32 on TikTok. We are 32and32 on Instagram. We are not on Facebook yet, but we will be.
We will be.
We will be. You can find us.
Dead.
Facebook's dead. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform. We're still working on getting on Apple. We're probably going to be switching stuff up this week to try and expedite that.
Yeah.
And make sure that you check out our YouTube channel and subscribe. We also have our weekly waiver wire video from our boy Dave Cruz. Shout out to Third and Short, at Third and Short on Twitter with 2 T's. He is our fantastic, phenomenal editor, and none of this would be possible without him. Shout out my brother Short. Have a good week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.